In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to ScrumDo and show you how to do some of the basic functions. After you first sign up for ScrumDo, you'll end up on your organization dashboard. Here, I've created an account with a username of new user, a company name of Acme Tool Company, and I created my first project called Acme Widget Manufacturing. ScrumDo automatically created a sample project for me as well. If you like, you can view the sample project to see some of the types of things you can do. But I'm going to go into this new project that we created so you can see how to set it up. The first time you go into a project, you'll have to set up your board. We recommend that you use the board wizard for the first time. The board wizard will let you create the columns and the rows for your project board. I'm going to use one of the presets called the Value Streams Alt to create my board. This will create an analysis column, a development column with doing and done subcolumns, a testing column with doing and done subcolumns, and a deployed column. I'm going to accept the defaults on the second step. And I'm going to create two swim lanes or rows for my board. The first one's going to be my standard, and the second one is going to be my expedited work. That's for important stuff that needs to get done first. And this is the board that was created for me. As you can see, the columns and the rows that I had specified are all here. If I wanted to further customize my board, I could go to the Settings button here. On the left, there are several options for different types of settings. The default, the project settings, lets me set things like the project name, the point scale that we use, how we want the board to look, and our card labels. You can also set custom fields here. I know I'm going to want a custom field on my cards called acceptance criteria, so I'll add that now. Over in the board editor, you can see a miniature version of your board. From here, you could drag cells around, resize them, or change any of the properties on them. I like to see a count of the number of cards that are in my developing and analysis columns. To do that, I'm going to select the developing header. I'm going to select the two subcells as related, and I'm going to set a whip limit of 999, which is a special magic whip limit we have that just shows the value instead of actually having a limit. And I'm going to do that for analysis as well. Now, if we go back and view the board, we can see this label here that says 0. And that'll tell us how many cards are in these two subcells when we start adding cards. The next thing I want to do is to add a few cards to my backlog. The backlog is a place that you can put work that has not yet started. To get there, I'm going to click the backlog link on the right. To create a new card, put your cursor in the field at the top and start typing. Most of the work you do in a Scrum project will be in the form of a user story. Oftentimes, user stories are worded in the form of, as a blank, I want to blank so that I can blank. Here I've created a user story about logging into my account. I'm going to set a label as user story so that I can identify this a little bit later on, and click the add card button. As you can see, the card has been created here at the bottom. If I wanted to edit the card, I can click the pencil icon, and a form will pop up allowing me to change any of the fields. If I want to create subtasks on this card, I can click the Tasks button. Clicking New Task. And if you hold down the Shift key when you press Enter, you can quickly add several tasks. Get their own mini status board, and you can set up these statuses from that project settings I showed you earlier. When you have tasks on a card, you can see a number in a rectangle that shows the cards and the statuses that they're in. When you have several cards, you can drag the cards up and down in this list to prioritize them. For instance, if I thought card number 2 here was more important than card number 1, I could just drag it up to the top. Many people are happy with a flat list for their backlog, but some people need a more sophisticated work breakdown structure. If you're one of these people, the planning tool is for you. The planning tool lets you create epics, which are groups of cards that can be nested within each other. To create your first card, click this little drop-down menu and choose Add Epic. You can expand the epic by clicking the triangle next to it. In the right column, I can see all my iterations. I know I created some cards in my backlog already, so I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to drag some of these cards from the backlog to my new epic. Now these cards are still in my backlog, but now they're also within this epic. can create sub-epics within epics as well. To do that, you use the drop-down menu that's inside an epic and choose Add Child Epic. Here you can visually see that Epic 2 is within Epic 1. I can move cards from epic to epic. If you ever need to reorder or reorganize your epics, you can choose the drop-down menu and reorder epics. From here you can drag and drop your epics, or you can change the indentation of them. Now, Epic 1 and Epic 2 are siblings of each other. Once you've planned out your work, you're probably ready to get started. By default, ScrumDo creates your first iteration for you, but I'm going to show you how to create one here. Click the Add Iteration button, give it a name, and select the start and end dates for your iteration. When you're ready to add work to your iteration, you can open it and drag work from either the epics or from another iteration. Alternatively, you can go to the board of your iteration by clicking the small board icon, and you can open your backlog tab on the left. Here you'll see all the cards in your backlog. If you change this drop-down, you can see them by epic or by label. You can drag cards from this backlog to your board. And when you're done, you can close the backlog. As you're working on an iteration, you can drag cards from one column to the next to show how cards are flowing through the system. You can select multiple cards by holding down the Shift key. If you have a lot of cards on your board, you can filter them to show just the ones you care about. If you click this button on the right, you will get a window that will help you build your filter based on various criteria. To clear the filter, just remove the text and hit Enter. By default, your cards remember which order you place them in, and you can drag them up and down. But if you want to view them in a different sort order, you can use this button in the toolbar. There's another option on the right called Reports. To show this feature off, I'm going to use a different project that I've already created some activity in. When you first go to the Reports page, you can see the cumulative flow diagram for your project. You can slice and dice the data with the filters on the top or the options on the left. This diagram shows you how much work was in each state over the course of your project. I can view a lead time histogram for the work that's been completed. This shows me how long it took cards to go from the start step of to do to the end step of done for this project. Here I can see that 4 cards were completed in the same day. 3 cards took 2 days, and 1 card took 3. A lot of times I don't care how long stuff stayed in the to-do column, and I just want to know how long it took to actually complete the work. So if I change my step from developing to done and click refresh, I can see that sort of data. You can see classic Scrum charts like burn up and burn down charts from the burn up/down option on the left. Here's a burn up chart for my entire project. If I want to look at just one iteration, I can change that option. And if I'd rather a burn down chart instead of a burn up chart, that's available as well. If I want to know how long cards spend in individual cells, I can use the aging reports. The time and state histogram shows me how long cards stay in a given state. I can show this by either report profile, which generally represents the position on the board, or by a tag on the cards. Here I can see that 5 cards have spent 11 days in the to-do step. 1 card has spent 4 days. And finally, 8 cards have spent 0 days in this step. If I want to see how long cards have spent in the developing column, I can change that here and click the refresh button. There are 2 other kinds of aging charts. The age breakdown chart lets me see how long cards have spent in several different steps. The relative time chart lets me see the relative time between the different steps. In both this and the previous chart, I can choose which steps to show in this box at the bottom. This has been a quick introduction to ScrumDo. There's a lot of features and functionality that I haven't shared you. Please visit help.scrumdo.com for more information or email us support@scrumdo.com.